Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. From wherever you're joining us from, this is Leadership File, and this is your host, Noah, the Lovo Broadcasting live from the great state of Indiana. Today, we are featuring a lady who has done great things out there. She hails from the Republic or the country of Guinea in West Africa, but she's based here in the United States. She is the co-founder and CEO of NoirUnited International, a global development and humanitarian organization that centers on Black and other marginalized communities. Let me bring our special guest so that at least we can jump into the conversation because we have a lot to discuss. Macire, welcome to our show.
Hi, Noah. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure that you spared some time to spend a few hours, a few minutes with us to chat a little bit about your journey as a leader. So without wasting much time, we're going to jump into the first question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you so much for your question. And I'm really excited to be here and to talk about my experience in leadership. So again, my name is Macire Aribot, and I am from Atlanta, Georgia. My family is originally from Conakry, Guinea in West Africa. And so I'm also the co-founder and CEO of NoirUnited International. And my experience started as the daughter of immigrants in Atlanta, Georgia, where my family immigrated to the US in the early 90s. And that has ultimately shaped my experience growing up and watching my family, my parents, help other Guinean and other African people come and migrate to the United States and get settled and, help them get enrolled into pursuing their education. That was something that helped shape me and helped me realize that I wanted to continue to give back to my community, continue to give back to the people who poured into me. And so all throughout my childhood and young adult time period, I've always sought out different experiences to try to develop myself and to see where I can also bring more representation for people who are like me. And so I graduated from Mercer University in Macon, Georgia, and there I studied international affairs and global development studies. And that is what opened the door to the international world for me, because I knew that I wanted to continue to work in politics. I knew that I wanted to work in global affairs. I knew that I wanted to work in the space where I could work to develop African countries and see the progress that has been taken away from us. So that is where we are. After graduating, I co-founded with my peers an organization called NoirUnited, and that happened in 2020. It was right after the global Black Lives Matter movement. During the protests for George Floyd, we decided that, Black people everywhere, African people everywhere were facing discrimination, facing racism, facing police brutality, all in different countries, but all facing the same experiences. And so that is what allowed me to start getting to the work, because I was like, well, we as a people are all facing the same struggles. And so we as a people are the ones who have the answers to our problems. And that is the goal of NoirUnited. We're focused on creating development solutions for marginalized communities, for African communities, and we want to center African people in creating those solutions. And now I am also, in addition to running NoirUnited International, I am also a student at Columbia University in New York City, where I'm getting my master's in international affairs, studying and concentrating in economic and political development, and specializing in Africa studies. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Wow, that's just impressive. I like the fact that you come from humble beginnings. Talk a little bit about, before we jump into the the meat of the conversation here. Talk a little bit. I know Guinea is a beautiful, beautiful country. Talk a little bit about just the beauty of Guinea and you, the time you were out there as a young girl.
Guinea is a beautiful country, and despite all the troubles we may be facing, I still have a lot of hope, and I still have a lot of faith in the fact that we will see progress, and progress is underway. My time in Guinea was mostly me being a young person and my family bringing me back to meet my family in person, and bringing me back to understand my culture and understand where my mom and dad came from and what it took to make it to the United States. And so Guinea, we're originally from Conakry, and Guinean people are very lively. Guinean people are very loving and caring, and that is why I decided that in order for me to uplift myself, I have to uplift my community, and all of these things go hand in hand. So that is why I become so passionate about this work.
Yeah, so I know you touched on the organization that you co-founded with your friend, and I appreciate you talking about the beauty of Guinea, because we don't get to hear that so often on the media around this across the continent. So it's important just to remind our listeners or viewers around the world that Guinea is a beautiful country, and of course, in as much as we are here in the beautiful land of the United States, we still remember where we come from, and I appreciate you sharing that. So we're going to transition a little bit and talk a little bit about leadership, because I know you are a leader, and it takes a lot to be a leader and to be in the position that you're in. Can you share with our viewers and listeners across the world what inspired you, or who do you look up to as role models?
I think that when it comes to who I look up to as role models, one, I will say that my parents will be my first role models, because they had the perseverance, they had the dream, they had a goal in mind. And because of the fact that they were able to pursue those things and take a risk to come to a foreign land and build something, that is what continues to inspire me to take a risk and to dream and to build, and to not place any limitations on myself and what I can accomplish. And so watching them do the things that they've been able to do continues to push me, because, as a daughter, I want to make sure that the sacrifices that were made are also something that we can benefit from in the future. And then also in terms of people who I look up to, leaders today and leaders previously. Some of my admirers, some of the people I admire are, for example, Kwame Ture, who was a social justice and activist back in the 70s, 60s. I also look up to several African leaders. Also look up to several Black leaders, such as like Angela Davis. And currently, I look up to those who continue to inspire us. I look up to Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. Those were the leaders that I saw and that continue to inspire me as a young person as well. And so, I think it's really important to have these role models, these mentors, these people who continue to push you and to allow you to see that, despite some of the challenges you may face, you can always persevere and you can always achieve the goals that you want.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Well said, well put. So I know it takes a lot to be a leader, especially you as a young person. What characteristics or traits do you think are important for one to be a great leader?
I think there are a few characteristics. I think one of the most important things to me is for a leader to know how to listen. When you are a leader, you are engaging with a lot of people, and you are hoping to inspire others in order to enact some kind of change. And so I think in order to enact the change that you hope to see and inspire others, you have to listen to what people are saying, and you have to be able to comprehend and understand how to take what you're learning to the next level. And in addition to being able to listen effectively, I think that it's also important for a leader to be able to, I think it's also important for a leader to be able to have self-motivation and have self-inspiration, because at times it will get difficult, and it's easy to want to give up, but you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in your cause, and you have to believe in your community, because they are the ones that your community is the one that will be there in the end to continue supporting you. And so in addition to, I think, being able to have good listening skills, being able to have good self-motivation and determination, I think that these are important things for a leader to have.
I like the fact that you mentioned the good listening skills, because a leader has to be able to listen and not only be the one talking. So I like that. That's one of the traits that you look up to as what a leader has to have. So now let's try to zoom in on your personal leadership now. Can you share with us a moment or time when you had to make a hard decision as a leader?
That is a great question. And there have been moments where you have to make a difficult decision. So I will give you an example of something that I had to face even recently. So as the founder and CEO of an organization that is growing and wanting to expand and collaborate and work with different people, there was a time where I had to make a decision when working with other organizations, whether or not our goals were aligning. And so one of the key difficulties that may come up is when you are working on a project or you're working on an assignment, and there are different directions that can be taken. And so as a leader, it's important to understand whether or not understand the importance of compromise and the importance of working together to reach the greater goal. And then at some point, once compromise is attempted, once collaboration is attempted, there may be a time where you have to make a decision and continue and work to go to your own separate ways. And one of the things that I say that I learned from my experience in this is the fact that, just because you end up having to make a difficult decision and switch direction or switch gears doesn't mean that your opportunities will be limited. I think that once you make a decision that's best for yourself, you're able to, really hone in on what your vision is, what your goals are, and then figure out, okay, how can I get to the next step? How can I continue to inspire others? How can I continue to live in my truth as an individual? And so that's something I think is really important.
Yeah, I like the fact that you talk about working with others, collaborating with others, because I think it's not easy, especially when I look at you as a younger person, to have this massive organization that you have. I think it must have taken a lot of guts. It must have taken a lot of courage. And then of course, I appreciate you mentioned that you look up to your parents, because I think leaving Guinea, coming to another country to start a life, I think it's not an easy thing. it takes courage. So I'm sure you draw a lot of courage and inspiration from your parents, right?
Yeah, I do.
Good, good. Yeah. So talk a little bit about the people that you work with. What are you currently working on? Because I know you were involved in a number of projects working with the marginalized community. Can you share with us just some of the projects that you're working on and or the ones you've worked on in the past?
Yeah. So um, when NoirUnited was first started, one of our signature programs was our Atlanta Black-owned business program. And essentially what we did was crowdfund and raise money through mutual support to assist Black-owned businesses that were shut down due to COVID-19 pandemic. And so what we did was provide them with micro grants in order to, provide a little support and, help keep their businesses open. And today, many of the business that we were able to support are continuing to thrive and are continuing to grow post-pandemic. And in addition to that, one of our current programs and one of our largest initiatives right now is the work that we've been doing to support African refugees from Ukraine. And so, in the beginning, when the war first started back in February of 2022, we decided to get involved and to mobilize with other organizations and community members around the world to assist African refugees who are facing racism and discrimination while fleeing the war. And what was challenging about this is the fact that, we have a community here, we have a war that has been taking over the entire center stage of the world. And we have marginalized people, Black and brown people, who are ultimately experience the negative, most of the negative aspects of these challenges. And so, you already are enduring having to flee a war, but then also having to deal with racism and discrimination because you are Black, because you are of African descent. That was something that, as the founder of NoirUnited, as someone who believes in, Black unity, transnational unity amongst our people, we saw this as an opportunity to help. And, we got involved. We ended up raising money to support these students, safely evacuate them from Ukraine, and help to resettle them in neighboring European countries. And so for the past few months, and we'll be working on this for into the next year, we have been providing basic necessities for students who came from Ukraine, and then also providing legal support, mental health support, and advocacy, raising awareness about what they have been experiencing, and making sure that they get their rights, making sure that they get their due diligence when looking at what they experience. And so, this has been a very challenging situation. And we've spoken to many students. I actually just came from Europe, so right now I'm in New York, but for the past 2 months I've been in Europe. We traveled to Germany, to France, to Poland, to Hungary, to Amsterdam, to Portugal, meeting with students and implementing workshops and programs there. So we implemented a lot of community events to support with their mental health and bring people together, because many students were facing isolation after having fled the war and being a second-class refugee at that. And essentially they are classified as third country nationals, and which also limits them from being able to access the resources that are provided to refugees. And so the main issue here has been because Ukrainians are receiving much more support, much more assistance than African and other Black and brown people who left Ukraine. I think that it's been very challenging, and this is something that we've been undertaking, and we want to continue to raise awareness about the racism that people face and what that means for the world, what that means for Africans around the world. After speaking to several students, many of them spoke about how they feel shame being African, and how they feel mistreated by white people in European countries, and what that means and what that does to them. And so, just understanding the fact that racism plays a, a major role on how humanitarian how humanitarian issues and crises are responded to. That's something that we've been doing, and we've been able to work with several organizations. We've been able to work with the International Organization for Migration. We've been able to contact several NGOs. And so that has been an exciting experience for NoirUnited, and it's another way for us to continue to ensure that Black people, African people, are centered in solutions that actually make sense and that actually, do not dehumanize us and does not make us feel as if we do not deserve rights and we do not deserve assistance and that our lives actually matter.
Yeah, I think there's just so much. First of all, I applaud the efforts, what you guys are doing. I think we know how Black people are perceived around the world, and just for you to do what you're doing, going to sort of rescue African people who were caught up in between the war, Russia and Ukraine. It's just a commendable job that you guys are doing, helping out. So in terms of the countries, you may not have the exact numbers, but just in terms of the numbers, what type of numbers are we looking at? The ones that have sort of gone through your organization.
So there are many students from various different countries across Africa. And so there's students from Cameroon, from Nigeria, from Cote d'Ivoire, from Guinea, from my own country, from Senegal, from Gambia, all the way to Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. So there are students from all over the continent. And then there's also students who are in the Caribbean, who are from Jamaica. And so, these students, there are over 10,000 students, international students studying in Ukraine. And these students were from Africa, were Black students. And it has been a journey. And I think that this is a moment in history where we're able to see, very plainly how the inequities in our international system continue to play out. And, how the legacies of colonialism, how the legacies of slavery, of racism impacts African people across the continent of Europe, across the continent of Africa, across all the continents around the world. So, this has been a moment in time where we can see plainly, if you are Ukrainian, you receive this, you are put first, you're allowed to leave first. And if you were African, if you were Indian, if you were from Pakistan, you were pushed to the side. And what students told me when they were leaving about how they escaped, when they reached the borders, Ukrainians were separated into one line and African people were separated into another. And it wasn't until, a group of students started to raise their voices and started to unite and, say, this is wrong. We deserve to also leave. We cannot die here. It wasn't until people started to raise their voices that they were able to cross over into the border. And so, just seeing the fact that African people are able to, despite, their life being at risk on one side, and then the risk of, dealing with a border patrol and dealing with police agents that can arrest you at any moment. The risk that you have to take to, defend yourself and to say that, your life matters. And just because you're African does not mean that, you don't deserve to live. And I think that just goes to show of how resilient African people are, how strong we are, and, how much more we can accomplish if we can come together and unite to see how we can solve some of the problems that we're facing around the world.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well put, well said. And the things that you guys are doing, I think what I can say is 10, 20 years, 30 years from now, you'll be able to look back and say, I was part of the rescue to rescue the African refugees who were caught up in the... So history will look kindly on you and your organization and the efforts that you are doing. So you better be proud of yourself, because this is not a simple task that you guys are doing. So this leads me to a follow-up question. Talk I know you may have hinted on that in passing. Talk a little bit about your successes that you have been able to achieve thus far.
So my successes that I've been able to achieve thus far, I'm very grateful. So, coming out of Mercer University, I was able to work on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., in the office of Senator Tammy Duckworth, and as a Congressional Black Caucus intern. And that was a very great experience for me because, not only was I able to gain more experience in the field of politics and the field of government, I was also able to, one, represent as an African person at the nation's capital and learn about, the processes and the procedures of what it meant to, to implement policies and legislation. In addition to that, I've also been able to, work and, it takes a lot of effort. I've been able to make it to Columbia University, and here I'm studying, I'm, learning, meeting with people, and, I'm being able to utilize the resources that are provided here to build NoirUnited and to, receive funding, receive investment funding into building, who we are and building, our initiatives. And so what we hope to do, we really hope to expand into not only addressing humanitarian issues from Ukraine, but also, humanitarian issues on the continent of Africa, issues that are ongoing and that have been overlooked and that need to be addressed and that need communal addressing. And so in addition to that, we want to be able to implement programs, development programs that continue to build who we are. And so, in terms of successes, it has been an amazing year. It has been a year of growth. It has been a year of progression. And I think that I'm excited to see, where we as a community will go from here.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We are talking to Macire Aribot. She is a African young lady who is doing great things. She is a CEO and co-founder of NoirUnited International. They've been working to do all kinds of things, rescuing Africans, especially in the ongoing Ukraine-Russia war. So as we are finalizing our conversation, what advice do you have for young people in Guinea?
I think the biggest advice that I have for young people in Guinea and young people around the African diaspora is to dream. It is to dream and to dream until you can make the things that you want a reality. A lot of times we are told that we cannot achieve the things that we want because of several challenges that we're facing, whether it is poverty, whether it is, the challenges of navigating racist institutions, whether it is, the challenges of not really being able to achieve, an education, a proper education. I think that right now, the advice that I have for you all is to continue to take steps to achieve the things that you want, and be clever, figure out ways around certain barriers, structural barriers, and in order to make your goals and your dreams happen. I think that it's important for us to never forget that we were placed here for a reason, and each of us have a special purpose here on this earth. Whether that is something simple, whether that is something grand, it is all up to our own preference and our own choice. And I think that we have to remember that once we in achieving our dreams, in achieving our goals, we're not doing this in isolation. We're not doing this as an individual. We're doing this as a community. We're doing this, we're doing these things for our family, for our brothers, for our sisters, for our neighbors, for all of the people who have poured into us to make us who we are today. I think that it's important for us to remember who poured into us, and to make sure that you're doing the things that you're doing in order to uplift us as an entire community. And so I think that a lot of times we forget, we get stuck into Western cultural ways where individualism is the only way to go about something, and it's important. We value helping ourselves before helping our neighbor. And I think that it's important for us to remember that nothing is done in solitude. Everything is done in community. And once you see that you can go farther when you're together, you'll see that the real fruits of your labor, the real fruits of the hard work will be much more enjoyable, because you'll see that the work that you're doing is not only impacting you, but it's impacting those who are around you. And I think that's important here. Believe in your dreams, work hard to get there, and never let anyone tell you that you are not, that you will not be able to do something that you can do.
Well said, well put. The last question I have for you: where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years?
Well, in the next 5 to 10 years, I plan to make NoirUnited the largest Black-led global development organization in the world. And I see myself, working on the continent, working with young people, making sure that, our youth have the resources and the tools they need to be successful and to take Africa and the diaspora forward. I see myself continuing the work to connect the diaspora. Our goal at NoirUnited is to bridge the gap, bridge the divide between our African communities that are spread out across the world. And so, bridging our relationships culturally, educationally, politically, bringing people together. I think that that's what I will be continuing to do in the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
Macire Aribot, it's been a pleasure having a conversation with you and sharing the great things that you have done, that you plan to do. So we couldn't be more excited. We are very appreciative, and thank you for taking time to be on Leadership Files.
Thank you very much.